Let's pause for a second and breathe, because the irony here is so thick it could be cut with a butcher's knife. The United Arab Emirates, the UAE, has removed the United Kingdom from its approved list of countries for government funded scholarships. Why? Because British universities are now considered too vulnerable to radicalisation. Let that sentence sit, folks. The UK, the land of prevent training, the birthplace of report your neighbour if their vibe feels off, the nation where lecturers are afraid to assign certain books in case a student files a complaint. Too radical, according to the UAE. I wish this was satire. It's not. So today we're going to talk about what actually happened, what this really means, why it's happening now, and why the UK should be more embarrassed than defensive. Because this isn't just geopolitics. This is reputation collapse in real time. Here are the facts. The UAE has officially removed UK universities from its government scholarship program. That means Emirati students who previously could study in Britain with state funding can no longer do so under that scheme. The stated reason? Concerns that students are being exposed to ideological radicalisation on British campuses, specifically fears about the influence of political Islam, extremist networks, and activist environments that the UAE considers dangerous. Now, whether you agree with the UAE's definition of radicalization is not even the main issue here. The headline itself is the scandal, because this decision signals something much bigger than education policy. It signals that the UK's global credibility as a serious, stable, intellectual environment is slipping. And that should terrify every British institution. Let's be honest, the UK's international brand used to be academic excellence, elite institutions, rigor, intellectual credibility, global leadership in education, Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, LSE, UCL, King's. Now, we're exporting confusion. The UAE's move is not about protecting students from danger, it's about trust. And the UAE is saying very clearly we no longer trust your institutions to shape our future leaders. That's reputational damage. Because when a foreign government withdraws educational confidence, they are not critiquing individual students. They are judging the intellectual climate of the entire country. They are saying British campuses have become politically chaotic, ideologically unstable, and socially volatile. And whether you agree or disagree with their motivation, the fact that this perception exists at all is the problem. Perception is power. This didn't happen in a vacuum. British universities have become battlegrounds for ideological conflict, not debate, conflict. Free speech controversies, no platforming, protest shutdowns, staff investigated for tweets, students demanding safe spaces from ideas, external political groups influencing campus activism, foreign ideological movements finding social footholds inside student networks. Universities are no longer seen purely as academic spaces, they are seen as political ecosystems. And when you become a political ecosystem, you invite political judgment from outside powers. The UAE has drawn a line and said, this environment does not align with our national values. That should trigger self reflection, not outrage, not denial, self reflection. Because global respect is earned, not assumed. Now let's address the elephant in the room. The UAE is not a liberal democracy. They restrict political speech, they criminalize dissent, they tightly control ideological expression. So, yes, there is hypocrisy here. But here is the uncomfortable truth. You do not get to mock someone's hypocrisy if they are making decisions from a position of strength. They are not begging the UK for students. They are not pleading for approval. They are withdrawing funding because they believe their interests are better served elsewhere. That is power. And when power shifts away from you, laughing at the messenger becomes self deception. The question is the UAE hypocritical? The question is, why has the UK allowed this educational environment to become so unstable that other governments are now openly rejecting it? Because that didn't happen overnight. What has the UK done in response? Mostly denial, soft diplomatic statements, reassurances that universities take student safety seriously, vague language about academic freedom, blah, blah, blah. No real self assessment, no public inquiry into international perceptions, no serious conversation about ideological balance in higher education. Just, we're fine actually. That response is exactly why the reputational decline continues. If you cannot acknowledge the critique, you cannot correct the problem. Britain used to lead the world in intellectual seriousness. Now it's stuck in reputational management mode. And when the reputational management replaces substance, credibility collapses. Many people will try to frame this as Islamophobia. Others will frame it as authoritarian paranoia. Both miss the deeper issue. This is about control over narrative and influence. The UAE is asserting control over where its future elites are educated. They are shaping the ideological environment of their next generation. They are making a strategic decision about intellectual influence. That's not emotional, that's calculated. Meanwhile, the UK seems unaware that its universities have become geopolitical tools. Education is no longer neutral, it's cultural power, soft power, ideological power. And when your soft power weakens, nations notice. Here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Britain has lost narrative control over its own institutions. Universities are no longer trusted to self regulate. They are no longer seen as politically neutral. They are no longer universally respected. Instead, they are seen as chaotic, ideologically captured, inconsistent, conflict prone. That reputation did not come from nowhere. It was built slowly, year after year, through scandal after scandal, controversy after controversy, ideological incoherence after ideological incoherence. We cannot build global respect while tolerating internal instability. The UAE simply said the quiet part out loud. This will not stop with the UAE. Other countries are watching. International students bring billions into the UK economy. They also bring global legitimacy. When governments start questioning whether the UK is a suitable educational environment, that pipeline becomes fragile. That decision sets precedent. It says countries can and will judge the ideological environment of British institutions. Educational trust is no longer automatic. The UK must now compete again for intellectual credibility. This is not just a PR issue. This is an existential challenge to one of Britain's last remaining global strengths. Finance is unstable. Manufacturing is diminished. Political credibility is shaky. Higher education was one of the last pillars. And even now, that pillar is cracking. The irony is not that the UAE fears radicalisation. The irony is that the UK spent years building surveillance systems, policing speech, implementing prevent strategies, monitoring student behavior, controlling discourse, and still managed to convince external governments that it cannot maintain a stable academic environment. After all that control, all that censorship, all that monitoring, Britain is still seen as intellectually unsafe. That should be deeply uncomfortable because it suggests that the problem isn't lack of regulation, the problem is lack of coherence. You cannot regulate your way out of cultural chaos. You cannot police your way back to intellectual authority. Authority comes from seriousness, from clarity, from consistency, from confidence, not from endless reactive policy. This story is not even about the UAE. This story is about Britain. It's about a nation slowly realizing that its reputation is no longer what it thought it was, that its institutions are no longer universally trusted, that its cultural authority is weakening. When even foreign governments feel comfortable publicly rejecting British universities, something fundamental has shifted. And if the UK continues to treat this as just a diplomatic understanding instead of a reputational warning sign, it will only accelerate. The UAE didn't embarrass the UK. The UK embarrassed itself. The UAE simply noticed. If you want a country to take you seriously, your institutions must be serious. Your discourse must be serious. Your intellectual culture must be stable. Right now, Britain is struggling with all three. And until that changes, this will not be the last time the world quietly withdraws confidence. Not left, not right, just real.